Please have a seat. Folks, it's great to see you here. It's a pleasure that we welcome one of our own back and one of our own that has gone on to become a shepherd. So it's a wonderful thing. Absolutely. So we're going to start off with, Wayne's got some photos here, and I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you let them know when you want the slides to change, and if you're taking too long, Bob's going to change them anyway.
All right, good. So it is amazing and wonderful to see so many faces. As I served bread at communion, it was great to see new faces, and you know, those little kids that now are almost my eye height. Just amazing. So what a blessing to be here. Thank you. My dear wife Janet sends her best regards. We're doing great in Idaho. She's very busy. A lot of things have opened up again, so she's in the church choir. There's a bell choir that she participates in, but she's taking a master naturalist class. And so she will become a master naturalist by, it's like merit badges. By the end of the summer, she should be official. It's not one of those kind of naturalists, Kurt. Yeah, the sash covers a lot, but the geology and everything in the state is amazing. A lot of flora and fauna. We had earlier this spring, a man was hiking and got almost stomped by a moose that snuck up behind him. It's an amazing place. So, and that makes front page news in Pocatello, I will tell you. That's big stuff. So, this is Janet and I. That's Emmanuel Lutheran Church on the left. We're in Twin Falls at a favorite restaurant on the right. We did a big trip down the middle fork of the Snake River, and that was me and our son's girlfriend Purni, Peter and Janet, and then Jesse and Olivia. Virginia is our New York City girl, and she claimed she had a wedding to go to in the Finger Lakes and did not go on the river trip. It was 6 days in the wilderness. I mean, there's nothing, no cell signal, nothing. And then Virginia spent some time with us because she was on furlough during the early parts of COVID. And so she came at Thanksgiving and left the following May. But here's a picture of us in Jackson, Wyoming. This is our house. Oh yeah, no, it's all that. We got everything. I mean, the Pocatello was on the Lewis and Clark. It was on the Oregon Trail. So I mean, there's a huge amount of history, even though it's not doesn't go back as far as here. This is our house. Yes. Oh. Those are all elk antlers. So right outside of Jackson, Wyoming, is the National Elk Reserve. I don't know why they're holding them back. It's like the silver and the gold and stuff. But they go out after they shed. They shed every year, and so they go out and collect them. And they make these big arches. They're all screwed together, so they won't fall apart. This is our house. We bought a house on the internet. We were going to downsize, so we ended up with 5 bedrooms. So come on. Out there, it's Pocatello's 60% LDS. And so to see a house with 7 bedrooms is not unusual. And when you look through the listings on Zillow, half the bedrooms have bunk beds. And there's always a room to store 6 months worth of food. So it's a very different kind of culture out there because of that. But it's not oppressive or anything. It's just interesting to see a family try to go to McDonald's with like 7 kids. This is Grand Teton Park. So on the left, that's Jenny Lake. Jackson's only a couple of hours from our house, so it can be a day trip if we want. We've done a couple of overnights, but on the right, that is my commute. I drive down the hill. We're on the east bench above Pocatello. I drive down the hill. That's my view in the morning. The mountains change every day. The light is always different. This happens to be, that was winter, but it's just an amazing thing to start your day. And then when I go up past the hospital, it's up on the hill, and on a clear day, I can see 70 miles to the foothills of the Sawtooth mountain range. With all the volcanic cinder cones. Pocatello is part of the supervolcano that's part of Yellowstone. There's a basalt seam that came up, and you see it when you drive down the highway. It's only 1,200 years old. And they say we could have another magma event at any time that they can't predict. So good time to real estate is always interesting. This was from our Middle Fork trip. We were on a raft trip. Like I said, our New York City daughter figured out a way to not go to the bathroom in the woods. I have 2 congregations. So on the upper left is our sign. We share the building. The First Presbyterians sold their building, and they're tenants in our building, and that's been a great collaboration. That's our sanctuary on the bottom left for Good Shepherd, and that's a light crowd. Normally we have about 30 to 35 people in church on Sunday. On the right is Emmanuel, and that's in Blackfoot. I get in the car after church in Pocatello and drive 24 miles. But it's 80 miles an hour on the highway, except in town it's 65, and I blew through a speed trap, and thankfully the state trooper stopped the car behind me, so I wasn't delayed getting to church. This is the sanctuary in Good Shepherd. For Easter and Christmas, they put up these white drapes It's a fairly low ceiling. It looks tall there, but it's fairly low ceiling. Not, this is twice as high. But we could seat about 120 if we really pack them in. And so we did online. So that's me on the camera on the left-hand picture. And then recently we had a lot of people in church. The local LDS stake wanted a class on Lutheranism. So I taught a 2-hour class in Q&A for the about 35 people from the LDS Church Communications Council. And then 2 weeks later, they came to church. And so we had an extra 20 to 25 people from the LDS church that came for church. So that was super interesting. It's just, it's interesting to interact. We don't have the same beliefs, but they do a lot of great relief work, just like the Lutherans, and so we have a common bond in doing LDR and stuff like that. And then this was Mardi Gras. I instituted Mardi Gras when I got there, and we finally started getting together again. And they were all a little curious about it, but they showed up because we served wine. And that's the other part. This is the church up in Blackfoot. So in between Blackfoot and Pocatello is Fort Hall Reservation. If you looked at a map of the reservation, you see two big chunks taken out of it for Pocatello. They were stolen away from the Native Americans for the railroads. And so there's that heritage that we're starting to do, land acknowledgement and stuff in the Synod. And so that's also part of the culture there, is understanding our relationship with the tribe. One of the things we did with the kids the first Christmas is we went to throw hatchets. Do not mess with my wife Janet. She won the hatchet throw. And then I also brought from here, I did Ashes on the Go the first year, and then this is the second year when we did Ashes on the Go on the left. That's Pastor Haiti. She's the Episcopal priest in Pocatello, and 3 other communities. So I have 2 churches, she's got 4. And then on the right, Idaho State University is in Pocatello. This was a class I took in lithography, printing with movable type. And that was something I did in 6th grade. And so it was fun to go back and do that. They had this private press. The woman in the purple on the left is the professor emeritus, and she keeps it going, and she just loves to do that. But of course, you got to wear gloves because it's all lead. And then the tradition in Pocatello, this is up on the bench near the highway. And so when I got there, we had our first Easter, they said, oh, we're going to put the crosses up. I go, what crosses? And so they, on Good Friday, early morning, they go up on this hill that you can see from town and from the highway, and they erect 3 crosses. And it's just a great thing, unless you're me and you have to climb up that hill. So I found something else to do this Easter, or this Good Friday.
Is there an interstate that goes right past there?
Yeah, so our church is within a stone's throw of the interstate. It's US 15, so if you left Salt Lake City 2.5 hours, you'd be in the edge of Pocatello. So that's our Christmas lights in front of Blackfoot. We have Afghan refugee resettlement in Pocatello. We started, they were going to send 25 people. I think we're close to 50 now. As the first resettlers got to Pocatello and realized what a good place it was, that word traveled very quickly through the resettlement community. And so all these people were requesting to come to Pocatello. The resettlement is actually, in our areas, being managed by the Catholic Charities, but Lutheran LERS, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, I think is working in Washington State to do resettlement. And we had they needed bicycles because they didn't have driver's license or cars yet and stuff. And one day I was driving to get some lunch, and I saw 6 Afghan ladies with their head coverings and bike helmets, and with great big smiles. They were riding through town. The weather got good for a day, and so they were riding through town learning all the different places to go. So it's been a good thing for our church and our community. The other thing is that my two congregations are owner congregations of a church camp up in the Sawtooth Mountains, Luther Heights Bible Camp. And I was asked to be the pastor for the family camp weekend. It's a small group because it was COVID time, but we had a great time up there, did worship. Janet was with me. This September, I'm going to be running a men's retreat up in the mountains at camp for fun. It's something that we do, and we support the camp. It's one of the only church camps that's owned by congregations and not the synod or a different nonprofit organization. And that on the left is the Eastern Idaho State Fair. Idaho's so big you can't have one state fair, you have to have it regionally. So that's done in Blackfoot, and they have something called the Indian Relays, and that's where they have 3 horses and 1 rider, and they ride bareback as fast as they can around this big track, and some years they actually lose horses because of injury and stuff, and one time a rider got hurt really bad. So it's very, very exciting, but very dangerous and the like. But the tribes and the native folks really support it. They really come out to do that support. And there you are. That's a huge fiberglass potato in front of the Idaho Potato Museum in Blackfoot. They consider themselves the world center for potatoes. I don't know how accurate that could be, but they claim it. So if you're from out of state and you go to Blackfoot, you go to the museum, if you show them your out-of-state driver's license, they will give you a potato for free. Well, I mean, you pay to get into the museum, but you get a free potato. So I had tried to learn bass and stuff, and one of my parishioners has a band that's no longer plays out, but they practice every week, and they needed a bass player. So I am now a bass player in a band in Idaho. If you don't think the Lord works in mysterious ways, but we have a lot of fun. My basser instinct. Yes, thank you, Kurt. And then that's just me in front of our sign. So we changed the sign when the Presbyterian Church came with us, and so we share that sign as a sign to the community that we are working together. So thank you. Does it say there? Oh.
Yes, that's right. So why did you accept your invitation to come to see us?
Because there's no good job that you can give up, as a pastor, and, the pay is good. No, no, you didn't. It was such a big part, BLC was a big part. Before I was here at BLC, we had spent a lot of time in the Episcopal tradition. And I just felt called back to the Lutheran Church, and I was welcomed completely when I got here. And so this has a huge place in my heart, the people and the traditions here and stuff. So that was a big part of it. That and getting in trouble, draping the cross.
A quick question. You associate with the Episcopal pastor in town to do things, sort of an ecumenical thing like they do in Fairport here. And in an ecumenical way, do you have interactions with the LDS leaders and so forth? Oh, cool.
So we are part of what's called the Portneuf Valley. And so Portneuf Valley Interfaith Fellowship, the temple, the synagogue is down the street, literally, from us. Very small community, maybe 10 to 12 people. There's a mosque, Pocatello Mosque, Catholic community, but also the LDS folks, UCC Church. The more conservative churches do not participate in the interfaith stuff because apparently we're too liberal. But I do meet with the pastors on Thursdays that are part of the non-denominational tradition. The Missouri Synod Lutheran Church is a huge church with a school and high school in town, so that's the mega church. And I'm good friends now with Pastor Dinger, but he says, I can't come and pray in your church and you can't do that in mine. So we trust that we understand each other and we have a good working relationship. Our little church in Blackfoot is considering selling our property because it's in a very prominent place, and we're now shrunk down and our budget's really tough. So he's been a good resource because he's a wheeler dealer with real estate from all the time building the church and the schools and everything. So it's been fun.
Interesting to me, point of view, I can't worship in your church and you can't worship in mine. It reminds me of days in my youth where my Catholic friends at Our Lady of Lourdes in Brighton couldn't come to my Presbyterian church, and I couldn't step into their church. It's an interesting.
My youngest brother is a Roman Catholic now and teaches catechism, and my middle brother is a Missouri Synod Lutheran down in Georgia, and he would not take communion from me.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, I mean, his loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite memory from here at BLC?
Well, besides getting caught with the ladder, serving on committees, second Sunday, washing dishes is not a great memory, but just the joy of working together with so many good folks. The music program here is amazing. I've got some good music in Pocatello, but I've got a semi-deaf piano player and an organist in Blackfoot, and Diane is very forceful, but sometimes her left hand and her right hand go in different directions, and we roll with it. The group, the band, the guitarist and the keyboard and the bass, we played for church last Sunday in Blackfoot because the organist was out of town and there was no substitute. And so we had a lot of fun, and I got to embarrass myself in front of my people with a bass guitar. And it's like they just love to be together, even though it's a small group. We don't sweat some of the details. And they know that if I get caught in traffic, because the highway between us, right, it's 24 miles, but there's elk and deer that cross the road all the time because it's open space. There's a lot of accidents on the road. White-tailed deer? No, mule deer, and big elk. You don't want to hit an elk with your car, not at 80 miles an hour. But yeah, no, just those kind of things. So. Questions?
It's great to see you. Thanks so much for coming. I was just cleaning out the other day, Doug and I were, and I came across the CD and it says, "Return to Wayne Shipman." So I looked at it, and it's a 2014 Easter Vigil. So there's about 10, 12 pictures on it. Would you like this? You don't have to take it, but if you'd like it, I actually looked carefully to see if there were any photos of you, but clearly you must have been taking the photos because, yeah, so there were lots of other familiar faces, but you're welcome to this if you like. Yeah.
Wayne, what do you find is the biggest challenge with serving a two-point congregation?
The biggest challenge for two congregations. So, again, I started in COVID, right? I started in the end of September in 2020. And I couldn't meet people the way I would like to meet people. People said, "Oh, what a terrible time to start a ministry." And you're like, no, I had a clean slate. You know, they hadn't had a pastor for almost a year. You know, they were just glad to have somebody to do a sermon that they didn't have to do because they were all scared to death of doing sermons. But, you know, it was getting to know people, I think, was the hardest part. They're two small communities, and they claimed in their, you know, ministry site profiles and in the interviews that, oh, we do all sorts of stuff together. Nope. That was a lie. They used to, when they had kids and families and stuff, they would do picnics and do joint worship. And they've tried, you know, to do stuff. But they're the two communities. Blackfoot's about 12,000 people. Pocatello's less than 60,000. They did not enjoy the rapid growth that other parts of Idaho, like Boise, did. And so it's not stagnant. You know, it grows, but it's not booming. And so, you know, we just don't get a lot of influx of visitors and people and stuff like that. So that's the thing. And COVID definitely changed things. It just made it feel like things took longer to do. We started worship a year ago on Palm Sunday to practice, literally, for Easter. And I would go to the office manager and I go like, who gets ushers? Oh my God, I gotta get ushers. You know, I was like, well, what are we gonna do for offering? Oh my God, we gotta go find the offering plates. Because we hadn't done anything. When I got there, they still had Lenten paraments on the altar. Because they stopped March 15th. Nobody had bothered to do anything for a year. So it was just really, that was probably the biggest challenge.
So Wayne, it may be the way you're wearing your glasses, but it seems to me your halo is brighter than it was 2 years ago.
Not really.
I wonder, what was the biggest culture shock you experienced there?
So, I mean, it's a different kind of culture. I just assume that somebody in my congregation is carrying a concealed weapon. And I wouldn't assume that here. Guns are just a fact of life out there. So, I mean, that's one of the big things. There's got to be 8 or 9 gun shops just in Pocatello. You know, I mean, you get the ads in the newspaper, you know, the front page of the ad shows, you know, ammo sale. You know, that's the big thing. So there, you know, there's and it's not a violent culture or anything like that. It's just there's a lot of hunting, people that hike and they go off into more distant places, because we're surrounded by Bureau of Land Management land and National Forest, and so people go on long hikes. They bring a handgun because they could run into a cougar. Less worried about moose or bear, but there's those things too. You know, a moose got loose, literally, in Income, which is just south of Pocatello, was wandering around town. You know, and the Fish and Wildlife guys got to come and scoop them up and take them someplace else. You know, so yeah, that's probably the biggest thing, is just the culture of that. Yes.
So no pressure, Wayne.
My neighbor David from when I lived here. Hi, David. And Kurt is a work colleague. They're the interlopers.
So I hope everyone can hear me. I guess so. So no pressure, but when are you coming back?
Well, I will bring Janet next time. You know, we always say, you know, it's like our kids are not married. We don't have grandchildren to worry about, and they're in 3 different places around the United States, so we're just closer to some or not the others. But, you know, there's reasons to come back. You know, we enjoy it here, and we have fond memories, and I had to go buy salty bread yesterday, because my daughter said if I show up, you know, in Newark, you know, we're going to get together for dinner before we fly out on Tuesday morning. She said, if I don't bring salty bread, I better not show up. So, yeah, there's reasons to come back to Fairport. But it's mostly the people. So, thank you. Yes, Sherry.
Having lived most of your life on the East Coast, the east part of the United States, what do you absolutely love about Idaho? What do you love about living in Idaho?
It's not the potatoes. Idaho is a very agricultural state, and Janet is doing the naturalist program, but she's always been a bird enthusiast. And so, you can just drive a couple hours and be in a completely different kind of environment. So you can be in the mountains. The Snake River Plain is huge. The weather is very different in every part of it. Because when you turn on the TV for the weather, you get the weather for Montana, Wyoming, the mountains, the plain, and even sometimes Salt Lake if they're going to have bad rain and it's going to affect people's flights. So we love this, that it's open. One of my parishioners told me a story that they were a specialty welder. We have the Idaho National Laboratories, which is where they do a lot of nuclear stuff, and he welded nuclear reactors. And he got an assignment to be in Saratoga Springs at an electric boat for a year. And so he spent time in Saratoga Springs. Any of us would live in Saratoga Springs. It's a beautiful place. He hated it. He said, I was so claustrophobic. All your trees are right next to the roads. He said, I had to move back to Idaho because I needed to be able to stand someplace and see 10 miles. And that's the thing. That commute, when I come down the hill and then go up to the right and go near the hospital, I literally can see 70, 80 miles on a clear day. And there's cinder cones from old volcanoes, in this big flat plain. And then you see the mountains, and you see the snow and the clouds, and you can see a thunderstorm 50 miles away. Yeah, right? I mean, those are my mountains. You can hike up them. There's trails that go all the way to the top of those. They're only maybe 6,500 or 7,000 feet. I say only. I live at 4,900 feet. And so it's colder up there. So it can snow in my house, but be rain down in Pocatello. It's just kind of funny. You don't think about that. And I'm enjoying all the extra oxygen down here. So it's kept me going, even though I'm sleepy. Other questions? Thank you for that. Yes?
Can you talk about the Indian reservations and the cultural reclaiming?
So, like I said, our synod is starting to do more with land acknowledgement. At our recent synod gathering, we had a 9 by 12 foot vinyl map of the Pacific Northwest, which has all of the tribal names and locations throughout the Pacific Northwest. We are on the land of the Shoshone and Bannock tribes. And Pocatello land was stolen for the railroad. The railroads had the government steal the land from the tribes. And it was, it was crisscross, right? I don't know if Lewis and Clark came through there, but I mean, the Oregon Trail passed through our area because you had to get to Oregon through there, because it was through the mountains. When I talk to my people at my churches about land acknowledgement, the older folks tell me, well, but the Indians, they don't use the right language yet. And they remember Indians being drunk on the streets in Blackfoot because you couldn't buy alcohol on the reservation, but you could in town. And they would get drunk and then sleep on the streets. So that's what they grew up as kids, going to school, seeing that. And so that would change and color your perspective. And so I think they're open to being more willing to talk about it. And the previous pastor, Pastor Bob Stone, was fully Native American, and he retired, and then he's living on the reservation in Fort Hall. He and his wife built a retirement home there. And then the guitar player for the band is part Native American, and so he has privileges. I was driving all over the reservation when we first got here just to see the sights, and found out that's illegal. I'm supposed to get a permit from the police on the reservation to travel through the reservation. So they're kind of protective. There's a casino, that I see on the way to and from church on Sunday morning. But it's not like Las Vegas casino. It's actually kind of sad. But it's the state, even though it's conservative, they still are doing better recognizing tribal rights, and especially around water now. That's a huge thing in the Pacific Northwest, fishing rights and access to certain things. So that becomes more of a culture thing that you see in the news and that people talk about. So thank you for that. So we compete with New York for dairy. We have a Chobani plant in Idaho. There's just lots of interesting things, Janet and I had to get our new driver's licenses, and they made us take the written test. I haven't taken the written test since I was 16. And so I got through it okay. Janet made it by one question. If she got the one more question wrong, she would have had to take the test all over. But one of the questions on the test is, do livestock have the right of way? And the answer is yes. You are not allowed to hit livestock. They have the right of way just like a bicycle or a pedestrian. So if you ever move out west, don't get that question wrong on the test. Blessings to all. Thank you so much. This has been a great privilege and honor to be here. Thank you to the Kolkers. Thank you to Bob for doing all the extra work it takes to get folks like me organized and here. And it will be a great memory, and I've got pictures. So thank you.
All right, folks, enjoy the day.